you all. Jeff, big day here in the history of AEW. 5-year anniversary. The TV deal is signed. It's official. The numbers are out there. Sounds like 185 million a year for
I saw
3 years.
150.
No, it's been increased.
Just now?
In the last couple hours, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sean Ross Sapp confirmed it.
Okay, well,
Now, yeah, and Dave Meltzer had been hinting all day on the Wrestling Observer message board that he'll have more tonight on Observer Radio, but it's a lot more than 150 million is what he said. So yeah, so it's 3 years with a option for a 4th year at a substantial increase is how it was worded. And immediately Brandon Thurston tweets out, I estimated the value of the WBD of the media rights deal for AEW at 70 to 75 million. So he just came in with a blowtorch.
Oh, he's going to get crushed.
Yeah. It depends on how you look at it. If you look at SmackDown, what SmackDown got, the number is reasonable, but it's also you're comparing the name brand to the B brand, right? You're comparing the NFL to Arena Football. You're comparing, I don't know, NBA to the G League. Like, hey, Curryhead.
I guess, but continue and finish your point.
Well, I just say, so ultimately what it comes down to is it's worth whatever WWE whatever WBD wants to pay for it.
Yes.
And if they're paying that, and for what's come out is it includes Dynamite and Collision. They did not mention Rampage.
Rampage is done.
They did not mention Battle of the Belts. They did not mention whether or not Dynamite and or Collision would be remaining at 2 hours.
Yes.
I could see one or both of those going to 3 hours if they're getting this much money. You don't think so? Or know so?
Well, they do so many overruns on Dynamite anyways. They could probably.
Well, I just think I think they like the 5 hours a week, but they don't like the Rampage name. So that's why I think they could tack on a 3rd hour to either Collision or Dynamite. And when they've done that in the past,
I think Collision needs to be reimagined somehow. I don't think you want a 3rd hour on that show, especially as it's getting slaughtered during football season.
A 3rd hour of Dynamite's going to do better than probably anything else on TBS besides basketball or baseball.
Yeah. I think the archive on Max will be interesting. I know that's not big for a lot of people, but I kind of like having an archive somewhere.
According to Sean Ross Sapp, no archive.
What? No, I thought like past episodes would be available. Okay, never mind.
Maybe past episodes of Dynamite from the time they start on Max. I could see that, but I don't think the full archive is on there. But I could be wrong.
Although I find streaming also not the best proposition. I don't like that they're streaming it simultaneously against TBS and TNT. I think that's a bad idea.
Well, it's preparing for the future. As Andrew Zarian put it, you're future-proofing. Transferring Heat has a good question. The biggest question about the deal is, does WBD own a stake in the company, and what's the pay-per-view price going to be on Max? So nothing about pay-per-view has been announced yet.
I thought there was. I thought they said that there was going to be for a reduced price on Max.
If they had said that, I didn't hear it, but it's possible. My guess would be that I think that 150 million number that came out first was the number without pay-per-view. And then if it's including pay-per-view, that's where the 185 kicks in. But I think Max isn't ready yet for pay-per-view, and they don't necessarily know when they're going to be ready. So you're starting on right now with Triller, YouTube, however else you can order the shows, traditional cable, I think. You can still order pay-per-views, right?
I don't think most AEW fans even paid for the pay-per-view, so it doesn't matter.
I want to address this question. I'm going to star this and come back to it because I got a problem with that statement, Matt. But but the thing is, does WBD own a stake in the company?
That would be very important. Yes.
There's a tweet that came out from, I want to say it was Sports Business Journal, and they said, as part of the thing, they said, important to note that WBD retains its stake in All Elite Wrestling. That was the wording of the tweet. If somebody can find that, they can put it up. But Jason, I believe, saw that. And he also pointed out that they did say later on. Okay, so what I saw was earlier. Max would have pay-per-view at a reduced price. So there you go. you can also get it for a reduced price by getting a VPN and signing up for Triller. I get it for $20. But yeah, so this kicks in 2025. They got 3 years. If you thought ratings weren't important because they signed a TV deal now, think again, because they got to keep these ratings up if they want to get that 4th year and a new deal after that.
Yeah. So, the discourse, of course, has been interesting, and a lot of people pulling receipts for people. And I think it's a little over people's skis, but I mean, because I was taking some hits, and I was like, I never wanted AEW to fail. I wanted them to get better. There's a difference between myself and them. But a lot of the podcast, and I think a lot of the podcast people that are getting hit also just want it to be better. They don't want it to fail necessarily. Now, I'm sure there are a few that want it to fail. Don't get me wrong, but now it's going to be even more interesting to me because AEW was a disruptor in the wrestling space, and they have proven they can survive. They should be lauded for that. And it was interesting the way people were watching AEW and talking about the business metrics, because it was one of those things where it started as the expectations were they're going to be equals to WWE. And I think that reality has hit in that they're not going to be number one anytime soon, but they hope they are. But the thing, and I've invested a lot of money in a disruptor in the Medicare Advantage space. And trust me, there'll be something around here. And don't get me wrong. And they've gotten themselves close to profitability, if not a little bit profitable per share. And now that they've proven they can survive, now they have to prove they can grow. Mm-hmm. Because they're only in New Jersey right now. This company I have invested in, but I think AEW is pretty much the same way. And it was interesting because I think everybody was expecting them to grow in this first 5 years. And it hasn't. In some ways, it's retracted in a bit. Now you're expected to produce a little bit. It's not just you have the shelf space, but now you have to prove that you belong in the big leagues, as opposed to everybody was kind of, once they took out NXT and chased them off, and that might be coming back. By the way, did you read this thing about the Fox thing, where Fox may put them on Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Thursdays would be a bad move for them, but Tuesdays, not so much. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how AEW loyalists now talk about the company. To me, now that they've proven they can survive, and I love this, they're now profitable. Is that the bar we're going with now? Okay.
Well, I mean, and
are they profitable? We don't know that for a fact. There's no books that are ever released.
No, I loved when I think it was Dave asked Tony at the last press conference, will you be the second most profitable wrestling company in history? And Tony, I actually liked his answer because, look, how should I know? I don't know I didn't see Jim Crockett's books. I don't know how much money he made.
True.
And I think what he's saying is, you haven't seen my books. You don't know what I'm making, and there's creative bookkeeping and all kinds of stuff. Like, we don't know their expenses. Like, I assume they'll be profitable at this.
I mean, we knew that Crockett, et cetera, wasn't profitable once, Dusty came in and they were pushing for nationwide expansion. But when they were a territory in the late 70s, early 80s, they were hella profitable from what I know. But I don't know, and we don't have access to those books. We don't have access to Tony's books either.
What the other question I had in regards to this, and maybe people that listened to Sean Ross Sapp's thing earlier today or read up on this a little bit more than I did today, because again, I was, I have kids to look after and stuff, but is this only US? Because I had heard at one point that they were negotiating worldwide rights for Max, for the countries that do have Max. Or is it only US?
I would assume it would be worldwide for Max.
Yeah. But with for Max maybe, but not probably for cable. For cable, it's only US, I would assume.
Yeah, because they don't have. I mean,
like,
I don't know what I don't know if British is BT Sports or TNT Sports there. That they use for
one of the premium channels, I believe.
Okay.
And Canada, we get TSN, and like there's other countries. They're on Triller in a lot of the world.
Yes.
And in fact, a lot of Americans and Canadians watch it on Triller and just use a VPN. So yeah, that's an interesting question as well, because that could also be part of why the money seems a little high. But again, if they're getting it, great. You know, that's a lot more money than they were getting this year.
You know, the other interesting question here is, now that they're getting all this money, do they decide to go for profit and cut some of the dead weight that's on this roster? They have far too. I mean, they've already cut a TV show.